and the Disney empire. The movement Don started paved the way for Christians to boldly stand for truth and righteousness in a hostile culture. Watch Culture Warrior today for free. Visit culturewarrior.movie.
Jenna Ellis in the morning on American Family Radio.
I love talking about the things of God because of truth and the biblical worldview. The U.S. Constitution obligates our government to preserve and protect the rights that our founders recognize come from God, our Creator, not our government. I believe that Scripture in the Bible is very clear that God is the one that raised up each of you, and God has allowed us to be brought here to this specific moment in time.
This is Jenna Ellis in the morning.
Good morning. It is Wednesday, August 6th, and yesterday, Representative James Comer, a Republican, posted that the House Oversight Committee is compelling the following individuals to appear for depositions through issued subpoenas. This includes former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, former President Bill Clinton, former U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, former FBI Director James Comey, former U.S. Attorney General William Barr, former U.S. Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, remember him? Former U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, former FBI Director Robert Mueller, former U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder. And this comes as the House Oversight Committee is saying that they are subpoenaing these individuals for testimony related to the Epstein files. So there's kind of some mixed reaction on this, and I want to welcome in my guest, Mike Donnelly, who is an attorney, and you can follow him on X at Donnelly Speaks, because... And Mike, so my first reaction to this is, well, I thought that President Trump said that the Epstein files don't exist. So what are they going to testify on? And if they come and they testify, what even is the point besides just a lot of, great PR that, somebody's finally doing something about the Epstein issue? I mean, this seems to be a little bit more performative than it is actually substantive. Your thoughts?
Good morning, Jenna. Thank you for having me on to talk with our brothers and sisters this morning. I think this is a very important development. This is an unprecedented scope and scale of a congressional subpoena. And but I want to start with something a little different. Luke 8:17 says this: "Nothing is secret that will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not come to light." And Proverbs 10:19 says, "If you walk in integrity, you will be secure. But if you walk in the crooked way, you will be found out." So I don't even know how many people really understand the whole Epstein case. The Epstein files have become such a political hot potato. I think we need to refocus and think a little bit about what is this case even about. Yes, Jeffrey Epstein died in 2019. Did he kill himself? Was he murdered? This is a question people ask. But if you go back, what happened? What caused this? So in 2004 to 2007 in Palm Beach, Jeffrey Epstein was investigated for state crimes relating to prostitution and solicitation of a minor. He was investigated, and he was given a sweetheart deal by the prosecutor there, which then caused the Palm Beach chief of that county to get the FBI involved, and the U.S. attorney, who at that time was Alex Acosta, who later became Trump's labor secretary in 2017. But at that time, Acosta also investigated, and there was a 53-page grand jury indictment relating to Epstein's crimes. However, was he incarcerated then? No, he was not. He was given a non-prosecution agreement and served 13 months in a county jail. Okay? And then after that, he went free and was free until 2018, when he was arrested under Barr, under Attorney General Barr, when whoever the FBI director was then, I can't remember. But when you look at all of the people that have been subpoenaed, it goes back to the very beginning. And I think what James Comer, and by the way, this is not just Comer. It's interesting. This is, the Democrats are on board with this too, because they think this is an opportunity to go after the Trump administration. But I think what you see here is a pretty significant failure by the FBI, by the U.S. Attorney's Office, the DOJ, to properly prosecute a sex criminal, Jeffrey Epstein. And I think it's appropriate for Congress to look into this. James Comer's talking about maybe we need some laws, some legislative action. And this is one of the things that Congress does. It enforces oversight. It does oversight over the agencies. And this has become such a public issue that we need this kind of transparency. We need Congress to get involved here. And whatever Donald Trump says about the Epstein files, I think, fine, that's a political issue. But I think there is a legitimate legal issue here, a legitimate moral issue here that we need to look into. The American people have become very aware of this, and we need to get to the bottom of it. What happened? Who was involved? Why did it happen? And I think that's why you see such an incredible scope going all the way back to the AG then, to Robert Mueller, who was the FBI head at that time, 2003 to 2012 timeframe, 13, and then also James Comey, who was around. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they say, what they don't say. But, Jenny, here's the other thing. Romans 13 says the purpose of government is to protect the innocent and punish evildoers. Okay, we're talking about girls who were minors, who were sex trafficked here by this person. That's not even a question. That happened. And what did the government do, and did it do what it should have done? So I'm looking forward to these hearings.
Mm-hmm. Well, and for accountability, and certainly, I agree with you, Mike Donnelly, that the government's one of their primary roles is to promote good, restrain evil, punish evildoers. And for this type of transparency that we all would like, I mean, so far, this panel that and this oversight committee that subpoenaed these 10 individuals, this is going to be closed-door depositions. So can we really trust that, one, we're going to even find out the truth and there will be that type of transparency? But second, that this panel, if it is closed door, will even get to the truth. I mean, I'm a little skeptical, to be honest. I mean, this seems like a good move, but
appropriate to be skeptical.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, so this seems like it's great that they're going and wanting to go all the way back and all this stuff. But if it comes out that some Republicans were involved, or whoever that is, whether the Democrats wish and they get something on Trump or whatever, all the way down to who knows who in Washington and some of those elites. Are we really going to have any type of transparency or accountability here? I mean, I'm really skeptical.
Well, I mean, that's a fair question. But, I mean, when you look at what the Trump administration is doing about transparency, maybe they're being selective. I mean, this case is such a hot potato, and there's so much confusion around it that you've got to start somewhere. But look at what Tulsi Gabbard is doing. She's declassified all kinds of things that were closed door, that were classified by Congress, relating to the Russia collusion, so-called Russia collusion issue. So, I mean, it seems to me that Donald Trump has said a variety of things on this, but he has said, just let the files out. He's told the DOJ, let the files out. Like, I think he said different things, but my sense is he wants people to know what happened, and he doesn't want this to be a distraction. The Democrats want to use it as a distraction. They're trying to use it to divert attention away from the Russia collusion investigation, which, by the way, I think is extremely important. And as I said, Ecclesiastes 12:14 says, God will bring every deed into judgment. No secret thing will be hidden, and everything, whether good or evil. The truth will come out. You can't hide it. You can try hiding it for 20 years. You can hide the Kennedy files for 60 years. Eventually, the truth will come out. And I'm glad that it's happening, 20 years after the fact, not 60 years after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, that's at least better. And I'm speaking to Mike Donnelly, who is an attorney, and you can follow him on X at Donnelly Speaks for a lot of great takes and views there, of course, on X. So what can we generally expect then from the Congressional Oversight Committee? Because obviously they are not prosecutors. They have the legislative capacity to then, to promulgate law in furtherance of the protection of society and, other legislative interests and all of that. They can make referrals, of course, to the DOJ, which may or may not happen. But ultimately, in terms of accountability, what realistically do you think we can expect here?
Well, we won't know until they conduct their hearings and then they issue a report and determine whether there are going to be any criminal referrals. I mean, there's so much about President Bill Clinton, and I got to think his testimony is going to be carefully negotiated. It's pretty unprecedented not totally unprecedented for a former president to testify, but it is unprecedented for a former president to be subpoenaed and to testify under compulsion. That's never happened before that I'm aware of. And so, everybody's like, well, Clinton was on the jet 28 times, or he went to the island 4 times. I don't know if they're going to go there. I feel like probably a lot of people's memories are going to suddenly or actually or, conveniently be stretched to the point where, I don't recall this and I don't recall that and I can't recall the other thing. Who knows what's actually going to happen, but you got to start somewhere. And, who knew what, when, and what was their involvement, and get the truth out. And, will we get prosecutions? I don't know. Will we get law changes? I don't know, but you got to start somewhere. So what can we expect? I'm not a huge fan of Congress, as you know. I don't have high hopes, but I am encouraged that they're doing this, and I commend, Comer for at least doing this and pulling all these people together to ask them what they knew and to begin the process.
So with this, then, what would be, just from, the legal hypothetical, what would be the incentive to even negotiate any kind of testimony for someone like former President Bill Clinton, rather than just pleading the fifth and just, simply not giving them any information? And it seems like that may be a legal alternative they might pursue.
It is a legal alternative, and they've got some Democrats. It's a close committee. The Democrats are on board with this current line of investigation, and so it seems like there's a lot of negotiation happening between the Republicans and the Democrats here, and so they've got to manage that. I don't know. Do we really want to put Bill Clinton? I mean, I'm not a fan of Bill Clinton, but do we really want to try to elicit testimony from him that's going to throw him into jail? Maybe some people want that. I mean, the guy's pretty old. What does that serve justice? Maybe. But do we want the truth? And so what you do when you have witnesses come in who, may have committed crimes, sometimes you can negotiate. They negotiate, say, well, we won't talk about this or we'll talk about that. And, of course, everyone can plead the fifth. And I expect that probably will happen. I expect there will be questions the Republicans will ask that maybe the president or the Secretary of State or I don't know if the AGs will have to do that. They may say, look, I'm not going to talk about that. And then the Congress will have to determine whether there's going to be referrals for the DOJ to do further investigation. This has been going on for 20 years. This should have been dealt with back in 2005. Alex Acosta, that he should be brought in to talk about this as well as a former U.S. AG. Why did he give this guy a non-prosecution agreement? That's what I want to know.
Mm-hmm. Well, and speaking of justice, I mean, I think that's people's perception in the public. The court of public opinion is obviously different what constitutes justice. But do you think that this, for the House Oversight Committee and the Republicans and the Democrats, who are clearly motivated by very different things, at least based on their public statements, is this really about justice or just about political pressure for the Republicans, but even the Democrats? I mean, clearly they just want to go after Trump. But it seems like it's not really about finding out justice. Otherwise, this would have happened a long time ago.
Well, you're right about that. And so it's pretty complicated. There are so many different motivations weaving in and out among all these different individuals who see political opportunity. And of course, Congress is a political entity. Everything's political with those people, basically. Although I would like to think that James Comer truly is interested in justice. He seems like that's his character. So I think it's complicated. You have to look at each one of them, and the parties have their own points of views, and, they're stuck with it. Different people have made this an issue. The Republicans made it an issue during the election. Now the Democrats see a political opportunity. So they come together and say, well, let's start unearthing the truth here. And, justice delayed, is that justice served? Usually not. It's usually better when people do the right thing at the time. But when you find out that people didn't do the right thing, go back, investigate, so that people today know that, no, this is not okay. It's the same. Why are we appropriately investigating the whole Russia collusion issue and unearthing all of that ridiculous all the conspiracy that happened then, because we don't want that to happen again in the future. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, so I say let's pour disinfectant all over this thing, and we'll see where it goes.
And so what kind of precedent could this set then for congressional oversight of these types of criminal investigations, or even for sealed federal records? Because that's really what we've learned is a huge obstacle for the DOJ to release any of this. I mean, they're looking at releasing some of the grand jury materials related to the case, and those have been sealed. And obviously Ghislaine Maxwell opposed that in a court filing last week. Or I think it was yesterday, actually. So what kind of precedent could this set for congressional oversight?
Well, like I said, this is pretty unprecedented in scope. It's a very significant undertaking, and it's hard to know what the precedent will be. But you've got, 6 former attorneys general, a former president, secretary of state, and I'm sure there will be other people who will be subpoenaed or who will be invited to testify going forward from here, I would think. If they really want to get to the bottom of it, like I mentioned, Alex Costa was the AG at the time. I mean, I think his testimony would be pretty important to understand what was going on at the time with the real issue, which was that Jeffrey Epstein got a sweetheart plea deal, served 13 months in a county jail, even though he was pled guilty to soliciting prostitution and soliciting minors, and there was a whole sex trafficking thing going on, and we know that because Ghislaine Maxwell, his associate, was convicted for 20 years on felonies related to sex trafficking.
Yeah, and I mean the whole thing I think is just it's all disgusting any way you look at it, and I really hope that justice is served at some level that we all can appreciate and actually see happen, rather than just kind of this, pro forma plays to the media. I hope that that's not what this is about, but it remains to be seen. So, Mike Donnelly, appreciate your commentary as always. And again, you can follow him on X at Donnelly Speaks. We'll be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis in the Morning.
It's Truth for Youth Bible Week. We'll give one free Truth for Youth Bible to every student between the ages of 13 and 18 who promises to pass it along to a friend. With it, more than 30,000 young people have come to Christ over the years.
So I tried to commit suicide and I was put in the hospital. One of my friends from school, she came up to me and just started visiting with me at the hospital, and she gave me a Truth for Youth Bible. So I haven't been the same since.
The Truth for Youth Bible consists of the entire New Testament and full-color comics, which present the gospel and moral truths. Parents can order the Bible on behalf of their son or daughter, or teens can call to get one.
We saw so many lives changed and seeds planted in the hearts of our students.
Visit tfy.org anytime or call 800-733-4737. That's 800-733-4737 between 8:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. to order or donate.
Thank you so much for making this book. It has truly changed my life.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
Hi, my name's Neil. I have some advice for you if you've been trying to break free from credit card debt. You can start by doing what I did. Get your bills together and call Trinity Debt Management. Trinity is dedicated to helping people like me become debt-free. When I called, my first experience was a feeling of relief. My counselor was kind, and best of all, she didn't judge me. In just a few minutes, she helped me figure out a plan that consolidated all my bills into one lower monthly payment. This substantially reduced my high interest rates and put me on the road to success. In the end, I saved thousands in interest, and today, my credit card debt is a thing of the past.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Neil. Take it from someone who's been there. Call Trinity and become debt-free for keeps.
1-800-788-1813.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Stern. Stand by for news and commentary next. Vacation Bible School may be old school, but it's still very popular among kids across the fruited plain. CBN News reports nearly 3 million kids attended VBS at Southern Baptist churches over the summer, some 70,000 making a personal decision to follow Christ. Vacation Bible School, a week-long affair hosted by churches featuring fun adventure themes for kids, along with arts and crafts, singing, and lots of recreation. Many churches turned snack time into an art form. You know, when I was a kid, I got to double dip. I went to my family's Baptist church VBS. Then I attended my grandparents' VBS at the Methodist church. Now, the Methodist had a lot better snacks. Almost switched denominations as a second grader because of that. The surge in VBS attendance could be a sign that more young families are now returning to the traditions of our faith. And the best part, kids actually want to get up early to go to VBS. Public school, not so much. I'm Todd Stearns.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis in the Morning on American Family Radio.
Welcome back. Well, the showdown in Texas continues as Texas Governor Greg Abbott on Monday ordered the arrest of the Democrats who fled the Lone Star State in an effort to halt the advancement of new congressional maps that could benefit Republicans in next year's midterms. Abbott said in a statement, Texas House Democrats abandoned their duty to Texans by fleeing the state. Texas House Democrats are holding hostage critical legislation to aid flood victims and advance property tax relief. There are consequences for dereliction of duty. So yesterday, Governor Abbott also posted, today I took emergency action to begin the removal from office of derelict Democrat Texas House members who refused to show up for the special session. Filing in the Supreme Court of Texas, he clarified the lawsuit I filed today seeks relief directly from the Supreme Court based on the authority of the Texas Constitution. And so just earlier this morning, the Texas Supreme Court has now ordered the Democrats to respond to that lawsuit by Friday. So let's welcome in Brian Harrison, who is a Texas state representative. And Brian, I just have to say, I completely applaud all of you in the state of Texas for finally holding Democrats accountable for this kind of, I think it is properly said, a dereliction of duty when they know that they can't win in session, and so they're basically holding hostage the quorum, and they should be vacated from office. So good morning.
Hey, good morning, Jenna. Always great to talk with you. And yeah, they absolutely should be held accountable for what is absolutely a dereliction of their duty. But the story, unfortunately, is a little more complicated than this because we haven't actually taken any action as of yet, and they've been gone out of Texas for over 3 days. And actually, there's sort of two parts to the story. That there's the part that the media is covering nationally, which is the Democrats fleeing Texas to thwart our redistricting efforts. That's a very legit story. However, there's an equally as big story that's being missed in all this, and that's that elected Republicans in Texas, the Texas Republican leadership, actually assisted the Democrats leaving. And what do I mean by that? I mean, the quorum break didn't actually start 3 days ago. The quorum break actually started about 5 days ago, middle of last week, when the Democrats were on the floor in Austin. We had the maps filed. We had a quorum. We were all here. And the House leadership, which is run by a bunch of establishment liberal rhinos, and these are the same people that impeached Ken Paxton 2 years ago, the same crowd, selected literally by the Democrats. The Democrat caucus elects the leadership of the Texas House. It's a massive scandal. I'm happy to get into that if you want. But the leadership of the Texas House, instead of keeping the Democrats when we had a quorum and when we had the maps, he adjourned the entire body, released the Democrats after only 7 minutes on the floor so that they could go down the hall in the Capitol and strategize and scheme with Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat leader who flew down from D.C., to help them plan the quorum break. So the biggest story here, in my opinion, it's not just, okay, how do we punish the Democrats, which there's been no punishment yet. Why in the world did the elected Republican leadership in the state of Texas allow this to happen in the first place? So this is as much a failure, abject failure, of the Republican leadership in the state of Texas choosing not to be bold, not to be strong, not to get this redistricting maps done in the first half of this year when we could have. That's equally as big part of this story that people should be frustrated about as these Democrats that are dishonestly and cynically and full of hypocrisy running around the country to some of the most gerrymandered states in the union to complain about this redistricting effort down here in Texas. So there's just a lot going on down here, and always a joy to get to talk with you about these types of things.
Yeah, well, that is incredible insight, and obviously that hasn't been covered as much by the mainstream media because the focus has been more on obviously after the Democrats left,
Yep.
and so
Right.
so where was the rest of the actual Republicans in all of this? I mean, was this known that this was going to just be adjourned after 7 minutes? Was there any attempt to tell leadership, this isn't okay? Like, how did this all unfold?
No, yeah. In fact, I posted. I had my team go dig it, find through the video archive yesterday because I wanted to find the moment that this happened, and I'll shoot it to you. We found the moment. So I had no idea he was going to adjourn that fast because the maps had been filed. I think the maps were maybe filed even that day, and the speaker out of the blue was just like, somebody made a motion. It was one of his liberal Rhino leadership teams. Like, I motion that we adjourn. So the speaker runs up to the gavel and says, on the motion of somebody, the House will stand adjourned. Any objections? And I screamed, object, to try and stop this. And he ignored the objection, gavelled down, and with that one moment, single-handedly released the Democrats to go to the other side of the Texas Capitol where Hakeem Jeffries was waiting to welcome them with open arms and help them flee the state. It is probably the most underreported part of this multi-layered scandal that's got the nation and the world on edge right now because the stakes couldn't be higher here, Jen. I mean, you know how razor thin the margins are in the U.S. Congress. So from my perspective, the elected Republicans in Texas should be doing everything in our power to make sure that the state of Texas does everything in its power to make sure that the United States Congress does not fall into the hands of the Marxist, leftist, socialist Democrats who are hell-bent on destroying our country and ruining the proactive, positive agenda of the last 2 years of President Trump's term. So that the stakes for the future could not be higher. Every Democrat who broke quorum, they're complicit in this, they're a problem. But you know what, Jenna, Democrats, I'm not as mad at the Democrats, I'll be honest, because Democrats do what you expect Democrats to do. They always do. They hate this country. They're destructive. You know they're going to behave like that. I actually have more anger for elected Republicans who have the power to stop the Democrats from pursuing their awful goals and choose not to stop it. You might actually be able to argue that's a bigger dereliction of duty, but that's what we've been dealing with down here in Texas for many years, is we have people who are actual Democrats, but they know they can't get elected as Democrats, so they run as Republicans, and then they cut deals with the Democrat caucus, and the Democrats effectively run and wield a tremendous amount of power in the Texas government, and America is now watching that play out as the establishment Republicans assisted the Democrats with this quorum break. And I know we're seeing a lot of rhetoric out of Texas leaders right now, but what my voters on the ground in Texas, they're not, the national media is hyperventilating on these press statements that are coming out of the governor's office and the speaker's office, and they're having photos with DPS troopers and all this. But what my voters on the ground here in Texas, they're not impressed by that. They want action. They don't want bold words. They want bold results. They don't just want arrest warrants. They want arrests. They want these Democrats to be punished and forced to come back here to the state of Texas. So that's what I'm fighting for down here right now.
Yeah, it does seem like with that background that you've provided, Representative Brian Harrison, my special guest today, you can follow him on X at Brian E. Harrison. With that backdrop and that background, then it really does frame the statements from Speaker Burrows in a very different light, who's then, really upset with the Democrats as if this wasn't known or predictable. And so do you think that this was more of a coordinated effort from the establishment leadership, or just, that he kind of gave them too much rope and now, they've gone and this has become a national story and he's sort of having to walk it back because, which ultimately is better, having them arrested for that dereliction of duty or vacancies as Governor Abbott is pursuing, or maybe both?
Well, right. So it is a very complicated situation, as you've rightly pointed on. And just so you know, I just sent to you a message which has where I posted the video, so you can watch it with your own eyes,
Great,
when
and
the nominally
I'll reshare
Republican
this
speaker
to my listeners on X as well, so you can go and I'll share this right now. Thanks. Okay.
Yeah, and you can hear me. If you hear halfway, it's only like a 6-second clip. Halfway through, you can hear me scream object when he asked for any objections, and then ignore the objection because he was determined he was going to release those Democrats, and he knew this. And I know this for a fact. I mean, it's not accidental. He appointed a Democrat, a literal Democrat, a liberal extremist, open borders, anti-Second Amendment, BLM activist is who he appointed to be the Speaker pro tem of the Texas House. And the guy he hired, I mean, there's an old joke in D.C., who's the most powerful person in D.C.? It's the Senate parliamentarian, because if you control the process, you control the outcome. Well, who did he hire to be the parliamentarian of the Texas House, who can single-handedly advance socialist bills and single-handedly kill Republican priorities? It's a former Barack Obama White House lawyer. Jenna, as you and I are talking right now, a former Obama staffer, White House lawyer, is the most powerful staffer in the Texas House of Representatives. So this was 100% intentional. Our speaker knew full well what he was doing when he released these Democrats. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Wow. So where do we go from here then? I mean, now that, and I think this is really important information to bring to light, what are you wanting to see happen here?
So I'm trying to put every proposal on the table that I can. So, for example, short of the vacating thing, which I don't, that's sort of kind of happening, but it's not. Nobody's actually ordering seats vacated. That's how the press is reporting it. But what the leadership in Texas is more or less doing is like sort of asking the courts to think about whether they could do such a thing, and the courts now asking the Democrats to respond. So who knows what's going to happen there? But there are lots of things we could be doing right now. First of all, we never should have been here. Republicans could have stopped it, but since they let them go, there's lots of things that could be done. I mean, the governor, if he wanted to play hardball, could tell the Democrats, as long as I'm the governor of Texas, if there's any bill that's got your name on it, it will never become law. Automatic veto. Okay, that could be done. He hasn't said that. Why hasn't he said that? We could have chairmanships. This is going to shock you and your viewers, too. 60% of the Democrat caucus was put into House leadership in some capacity. They co-chair. Democrats co-chair every single committee and actually chair. They are the chairman of multiple committees in the Texas House, including our most powerful committees, like some of our budget subcommittees. The write the budget are chaired by Democrats. We should revoke their chairmanships immediately, but that hasn't been happened. The House administration could cut their office budgets, stop their ability to pay their Democrat staffers. That hasn't happened. We could take away their seniority. That hasn't happened either. We could defund their offices. Basically, there's a whole array of things that if Republican leaders in Texas were serious, not just trying to look good on Fox News, but were serious about delivering results to make the Democrats actually suffer some kind of punishment for their abandonment of their constitutional responsibilities that they could use. But as of yet, not one actual punishment of any kind has been meted out. So my big proposal, like what I would do, okay, if I were the governor of the speaker, I'd play hardball. And I would tell these Democrats, okay, in addition to all these other things I said we should do that. But for every week you're gone, you're angry that we're redrawing the maps to give us more Republican seats. Here's the deal. For every 1 week you're not here in Texas, we're going to amend the map and add one more Republican seat. So stay gone as long as you want. But for every week you're gone, we're adding one more Republican seat to the map. That's what I think we should do.
Yeah, well, I mean, and all of that seems like that should be on the table. And so in your view, is Greg Abbott in filing this in front of the Texas Supreme Court for vacancies and all of that just not going far enough? I mean, because it seemed like to, those of us, like I'm outside the state of Texas, so all of this is great information. It seemed to us that finally Republicans are doing something, but now it seems like, well, maybe they kind of really aren't.
Well, what they're definitely doing is having the appearance of doing something. And this is what I'm so sick and tired of these establishment Republicans for far too many years doing basically con jobs on the actual conservative, freedom-loving, pro-liberty voters that they're supposed to represent, which is too many establishment Republicans for too many years. They spend more time looking like they're doing bold conservative things. But in the background, they're really cutting deals with the Democrats. So a lot of what's being played out right now, and I hate to say it, it hurts my heart. I love this state. I love our country. I want to save it. I never forget the sacrifice that people generations before us paid so that we can enjoy the blessings of liberty, and I want that for my 4 young kids. But we have too many Republican politicians. Democrats are going to be what they are. We have too many nominally Republican politicians in this country who care more about acquiring and maintaining power for its own sake than they do about remembering that the number one job of government is to protect our God-given freedoms and liberties. So they want to do just the bare minimum to make their voters, who they know are busy living their lives, believe that they're fighting for them and believe that they're taking bold actions to save our state and our country for their kids and grandkids. But the reality is they just want to maintain their friendships with the Democrats. They want glowing coverage in the national media, but they don't actually want to do the hard work of ruffling feathers and upsetting the apple cart here in the swamp. And there's not just one swamp in D.C. There's 51 swamps. Every state capital has a swamp. And the swamp in Austin might be actually worse than the swamp in D.C., and I've spent years working in both. The swamp in Austin might be worse because there's less transparency and because people look at the numbers and just say, whoa, you've got a massive majorities in the House and the Senate. You've got the governor, lieutenant governor. Texas must be fine. But what they don't understand is just when you peel that onion bag just a little bit, it's Democrats that run for office that they know they can't get elected as a Democrat, so they run as a Republican. So we actually have a lot of would-be Democrats masquerading as Republicans controlling the government in Texas. So, look, I'm happy to see some strong rhetoric coming out of Texas Republican elected leadership, but that just doesn't impress me very much. My voters don't care about words. They care about actions. These Democrats need to be punished. They need to be arrested. Republicans need to play hardball. The Democrats always do. And I'm sick and tired, Jenna, of the Democrat Party fighting harder for the future of this country than elected Republicans. And I fear we're seeing that play out here. We'll see, I think, as the days go on. But we only have less than 2 weeks left in the special session. So if we're starting a judicial proceeding now, I mean, the session could be over before courts weigh in on any of this stuff.
Well, thank you, Brian Harrison, for giving us the truth and shedding some of that light in Texas. And if you are a listener from Texas, I would encourage you, take the podcast version of this, send it to the governor's office, or just call them, call your representatives, call the speaker's office, and tell them that you want action. You don't just want words, because we have to protect the conservative state of all of our states. So follow Brian Harrison. We'll be right back with more.
The Awakening with Bishop E.W. Jackson.
We have not been made the greatest nation in the history of mankind by denigrating God. We have become the greatest nation on earth because we are a nation that acknowledged Almighty God to be the source of our values, our rights, our liberties, and that therefore we are accountable to Him.
The Awakening on the podcast page at afr.net.
Culture is a product of us being placed in a particular location, and it is God's desire that His light bearers would culture or cultivate a particular area.
Join Abraham Hamilton III as he presents the biblical case for cultural engagement. It's a powerful video resource from the American Family Association's Cultural Institute series.
You and I create the culture of our country.
Visit afastore.net.
Hi, I'm Jan Harper. If you are a pastor's wife, come be encouraged and renewed as you share your challenges and stresses unique to pastors and their wives.
The AFA Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat is coming October 28th through the 30th. You're invited to join us at Pickwick Landing State Park in Counce, Tennessee for 3 days of encouragement, renewal, and worship. Once again, Brother Bert Harper, AFA Director of Family and Pastoral Ministries, will host the retreat along with his wife Jan. Our special speaker will be J.J. Jasper of American Family Radio. If you've attended in the past, we'd love to see you again. And if you've never experienced a fishbowl retreat, we especially invite you to be refreshed and renewed. The per-couple admission price includes lodging, meals, and materials. Visit repairingthefoundations.net to learn more and register. That's repairingthefoundations.net.
The AFA Pastors and Wives Fishbowl Retreat. We'd love to see you there.
Hey, I'm Brant, and her name is Sherry.
Hello.
She's a friend of mine whom we were just praying for because of a surgery she just went through.
Yes, and I am very happy about something you actually talk about all the time, which is
Medishare.
That is right.
Yeah. So what was your experience like with Medishare and the healthcare bills?
Honestly, Brant, seamless. And what a blessing that is when you're already nervous about a health issue, which I was.
Yeah.
Members shared my expenses. There were zero problems. And let me tell you, having people pray with you when you call in with your need, that is just...
It is refreshing.
Yes, that's what it is.
That's what I keep telling people. People love Medishare, and they love saving tons of money, too. The typical family can save $500 a month.
I am very thankful for Medishare. It is so different, and I mean different in a very, very good way.
It is good different. Call now. They're easy to talk to, and you can get a price within 2 minutes. Call 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis in the Morning on American Family Radio.
Welcome back. And Republicans are furious for Democrat Representative Delia Ramirez from Illinois saying that she is proud to be a Guatemalan before an American. She apparently made these remarks at a speech that she was giving. It was actually in Spanish, and that translation said that I'm proud to be a Guatemalan before I'm an American, and somehow she's still in Congress. So a lot of members of Congress on the Republican side are calling for her to resign or be expelled. And so Senator Tim Scott told Glenn Beck earlier this week, quote, anyone who has taken the oath of office who says their allegiance is to another country, they have betrayed their oath of office. So let's welcome in Todd Starnes, who is the host of the Todd Starnes Show, has a great show on Newsmax as well, and is the editor-in-chief of ToddStarnes.com. And Todd, I tend to agree with all of this. I mean, if you have a member of Congress that's saying they're loyal to another country before America, that does appear to violate their oath of office, which is to the U.S. Constitution first and foremost.
Yeah, that is the oath of office that any member of Congress has to take, Jenna. So it's really surprising a lot of people that she would say something like this on foreign soil. She's not the first lawmaker on the Democrat side of the aisle to do that. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, the Minneapolis area, also has said numerous times in a foreign language that her allegiance was to Somalia. So this is problematic. And when you do a deep dive into Ramirez, who is a congresswoman from Illinois, when you do a deep dive into who she is, her parents came here as illegals, and she's married to an illegal, a so-called dreamer. So if her first allegiance is to Guatemala, then I would recommend that she resign her seat in Congress and move there, and maybe she can run for office in that country.
I mean, and that would be rational, right? But Democrats, of course, are trying this kind of overtly hostile takeover of America. I mean, they're trying on purpose to put America at the absolute bottom and say that anything and everything else comes before America, even though they are taking advantage, of course, of the opportunities that are provided in America. They say that they hate it, but yet they're taking advantage of it, but they want to transform it. And so I don't think she's going to just resign on her own. Do you think that Speaker Johnson and Republicans actually have not only the spine, but also the attention and perhaps the political capital to go after expulsion for something like this?
I really have very little confidence in Speaker Johnson and his leadership, to be honest. I've been very disappointed in the direction that the House has been going under his leadership. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think they want those kinds of fights. And I think it's problematic for this one reason. The Democrats would do it to Republicans, and they have. When the Democrats are in control, it is open warfare. It is open season on Republicans. And the only reason they continue to do this, Jenna, is because Republicans don't fight back with ferocity. You know, this is politics, and you've got to be willing to stand up and you've got to defend your people. And my inclination here is that the reason why the Democrats continue to do this is because they know the Republicans don't have the courage to stand up and do the right thing. So it's problematic to me. I don't think anything is going to happen, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, and I'm speaking with Todd Starnes, who's the host of the Todd Starnes Show, and you can follow him on X as well. I'd encourage you to do that. And this is the problem, Todd, that a lot of people have with the current GOP, is that they're not doing anything. Nobody's facing any types of consequences. I mean, we talked earlier in the program about, the subpoenas that the House Oversight Committee has now issued against some very prominent figures, including Bill and Hillary Clinton, some former attorneys general, and yet it seems like these are kind of performative stunts when then we don't have any real accountability for anything with Spygate, anything with Russia collusion, anything with the first and second impeachments, anything with the lawfare. I mean, Alvin Bragg is still there at his post, right? And so it just seems like this is kind of hope deferred, which the Bible says makes the heart sick. And I think for a lot of conservatives, seeing this type of brazen action by the Democrats on a whole host of levels, I mean, we could give so many more examples, there just doesn't seem to be any even willingness to try to follow through from the Republicans. I mean, I'm tired of the strongly worded letters and, kind of the outrage that people like you and I can offer, but, we don't really have the power to do anything to hold anybody accountable. And so, what's the solution here?
Well, it's a tough one. What I find interesting about the subpoenas, and again, it's, okay, great. Why are we issuing these subpoenas now? What testimony are they going to deliver that we don't already have evidence of? Keep in mind, the president himself told us that there are no files. The DOJ told us there are no Epstein files. There never were any Epstein files. So if that is the case, my question is, why are we issuing all of these subpoenas? If there's no there, this is just a bit of political theater at the expense of the American taxpayers. Now, I've been pretty clear, and my philosophy on this is black and white. I think all the information should be released. If there are Republicans on the list, then we need to let people know who they are. If there are Democrats, we need to let them know who they are as well. But the idea that you campaign on something, and then once you get elected, you turn around and say that the people who thought there were files are stupid, that is not a way to win future elections. And I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about the midterm elections coming up. It's a very dangerous game the Republicans are playing, because if they lose control of the House of Representatives, it will be an impeachment palooza.
Right. Well, and we know that the Democrats will waste no time going after impeachment and just, tying up the Trump administration and pretending that all of this is valid and having any sort of even pretext for legal options they can possibly devise. And Republicans are currently in power with the trifecta, and they're just sitting on their hands. I mean, they can't even pass legislation to repeal the FACE Act. I mean, to at least give justice to conservatives and Christians who've been prosecuted under this, ridiculous arcane law just for being pro-life. I mean, they can't even do something that simple. And so do you think that the problem with the midterms is going to be in part because a lot of people of the overall MAGA base, but also just in general conservatives who expect something better from our government, are not going to be willing to go out and vote? I mean, I hope not. People should go out and at least vote for, at minimum, the lesser of the two evils. But it seems like a lot of people who've been excited to get into politics for the first time don't seem to have that same enthusiasm.
It's a fair question, and that is the concern. It's not that all these people, independents and MAGA or conservatives, are going to suddenly turn around and vote for the Democrat. It will be that they're not going to vote at all. They're just going to stay home. You're demoralizing the base, and I think that is the concern here. The one advantage I would say would be the redistricting efforts. But again, if you demoralize the base, we have some very important races out there, including a Senate race in Georgia. And I am very concerned right now with the lack of work and effort advancing the president's agenda through Congress, that we could end up in big trouble up on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, and I think there's a very fair possibility that the GOP could lose the House or the Senate or both, just based on the elections the seats that are open for re-election in the Senate, and that composition, and then just the very, very slim margins. And, meanwhile, Todd, the Republicans are saying, oh, well, the Democrats are in disarray. They have no message. They have no leader. They have, nothing that's rational. We're returning back to sanity. All of these kind of true, but kind of platitudes. And I don't see that reflected in the overwhelming votes for Congress. I mean, certainly not what we saw in President Trump's election, that he won by a landslide. And so how do the Republicans actually take that message and transform it into votes when it seems like half the country is still willing to vote for the Democrats who are just absolutely un-American?
It's a fair question. And I really think that, politics has always been a dirty sport. And I think a lot of people have been treating politics sometimes like church. And you can't do that, because we're dealing with a lot of dishonest people. We're dealing with a lot of folks who are making a lot of promises out there that they have no intention of keeping. And that's sad, but that's an unfortunate reality, which is why I think, organizations like American Family Radio and AFA are so vitally important, because that's the only way that people are going to be able to mobilize and understand, who is really on what side of the issue. And that's going to require a lot of homework on the part of the American voters. Just because they have an R behind their name doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stand up and fight for what is right in this nation.
Yeah, so well said. And that's why the primaries are even more important, to select a good conservative candidate first before you have to go to, this is the lesser of the two evils, and we don't want somebody with, the Kamala Harris worldview and the Marxist socialist. So, we'll vote for somebody who maybe isn't that, but isn't actually genuinely conservative. And so, with that, how do people like Congresswoman Delia Ramirez? I know she's from Illinois, and so that base is difficult, but how do people who are that focused on putting down America and saying things like, she's a Guatemalan before she's an American, how does somebody like that even get elected in the first place? And probably her seat is, unless Republicans mount a really strong targeted defense, she'll probably end up reelected.
Yeah, that's a fair question. And I think, Jenna, again, going back to the premise of all of this, is that we've got a job to do, and we're going to have to keep getting out there. We're going to have to be fighting for the values and the precepts, that we believe in. And they're going to be good. They're going to be good days and bad days, but we have to persevere. And that's one of the reasons why, again, AFR is so vitally important, is that this provides an outlet to talk about the issues. And also just to, I don't mean to be a contrarian, but, I think we have to call out our side of the aisle when they aren't living up to their promises. That's the challenge and the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. The Democrats deliver on their campaign promises, no matter how horrifying they might be. The Republicans do not, and we've got to figure out a way to fix that.
Yeah, well, really well said. Well, Todd Starnes, thanks so much for your commentary this morning. And I think the message is that this is still urgent. We can't just rest on, well, yay, President Trump is back in office, and so there will be conservative priorities. We always have to look toward the next fight and making sure that we are keeping our government with those who are the best equipped to advance the most conservative priorities in office. So thanks again to Todd Starnes. You can follow him on X. Go to toddstarnes.com. And as always, you can reach me and my team, Jenna, at afr.net.